On this episode of Work It, we talk about setting career goals and how it affects your career.
Yep. So today we're going to talk about goals and setting career goals at work. So why do you feel goal setting is important as part of a job search?
Do you want me to take that? I can, absolutely. So as part of a job search, I think there's a lot of, especially if we look at today's economic climate, there's a lot of people who are just looking because they're in a panic right now, right? And are looking for a job. So then when that happens, you're not necessarily aligned with what it is that you want to look for, and then you'll find out 6 months down the line that this isn't like the role that you're actually looking for, and you're still going to be unhappy at the end of the day. So you can save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache, I guess, or just effort, and really navigate your search in the beginning and dial into what you're looking for in a company, what you're looking for as far as your career trajectory, and whether or not you can actually accomplish those in the jobs that you're applying for.
I agree with you. I think that knowing why you're actually looking for that job, if you're starting the search yourself, it's kind of different because sometimes we're initiating the search by contacting the candidate themselves. But when they're looking at it from their perspective, what are they wanting to achieve? Are they just testing the market to see what's out there? Are they wanting to, because we see this all the time in our business, are they trying to sweeten the deal where they are? So sometimes we've gone down the road with candidates that way and get disappointed in the end because all they're looking to do is they have the comfort level where they are. And then be ready to make a move. You know that if you're coming to the part where you're actually going to put yourself into the market, be prepared as part of that goal to make a move as your end result. If that's really where you're lining up to.
When I reach out to candidates blind, I always tell them, if it's not a confidential search, what the company is, and tell them, go do your research and see if this actually aligns with what you want to do. Because I don't want you to go up in front of a client if you don't, this is not a company that you want to join, that you don't align with to begin with. Because then they're going to have a terrible experience as well. Angela wants her opinion.
No, I'm like, what, do you put that out over digital, or do you wait till you get them on the phone? Yeah, for sure. I never share our clients or anything over any.
I always say I'm in a client search for.
Client search, and that's how I engage them too. Is like that we got to talk on the phone. I'm not putting my stuff out there. Yeah. I think career goals are different than job goals. You find sometimes people are just looking for a job and that can suit them for that time, whereas a career is something where you're looking for some sort of development, progression, but that can also be broken into segments of your life, because sometimes as the female, maybe she's in a management level role but doesn't want to expand from there because it works better with getting home to pick up the kid, whatever that is. So I think it just depends on where you're at in your stage of your life.
So what do you see the difference, to just continue on that, between a short-term and a long-term goal when it comes to job searches?
A short-term and a long-term goal. Short-term is to fill a void. You're looking to, it could be a financial void. It could be you're just looking for something to be able to subsidize something. A short-term goal could be also learning a specific skill. If you are a cashier at a grocery store, maybe you want to learn how to count inventory. You can set that as a goal and work with your manager. You're not necessarily striving to be a manager yet, but you're building that tool belt. So that could be like your short-term goals is each segment, I'll learn how to count peas, and then the next one will be garbage bag, whatever that function is. Versus a long-term goal could be your 2, 3, 4-year plan is to become a manager, a regional, and to develop throughout the ladder.
I think a lot of that, though, is to deal with the career goal setting. If you're looking at a company, like when you're out on your job search, if you can't find somebody who you want to be mentored by in that company, then you're likely not going to want to stay in that company. There's always the exception, as in there are people who can learn on their own and by osmosis be around people and learn skills, but most people aren't like that. So if you can't find somebody that you're going to relate to, even in your interview process, and you're talking to those to the hiring managers, to people that you're reporting to, if you don't see yourself being able to foster a relationship with them, that's going to be indicative of whether or not you're going to be able to develop yourself, and or whether or not you're going to be able to have a growth plan that they can help you with.
I think a lot of people entering the workforce don't even really know what career goals are.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? I think
everything was so short-term and immediate. Everybody was looking for a gain over the last few years, or even survival in some industries. So it just becomes more of a thoughtful process again back to 4 or 5 years ago when you did establish a career plan.
But even when you're coming out of university or college, whatever the case may be, and you're just trying to get experience, you just want to get into a door somewhere and look at whether or not the building that you're walking through is something that you want to be part of for the next 5 years, because you're going to be there for a number of years in order for you to get from an entry-level position to a position where you can be in your field doing what it is that you went to school for, whatever the case may be. Look to see if that's a possible trajectory. If it's not, talk to people. Find out from employees that they have currently. Do they have opportunities to learn other things outside of the scope of work that they have? Do they have stretch goals for themselves, right? Are they able to grow? And then, because that's not something that an entry-level position, anyone is really going to hold your hand and not help you navigate that. Nobody's going to do that.
No.
So then today, you've both been in business for a long time. What would you consider to be
that would be the first one,
or a simple framework for people coming out of school, like you said, that are trying to set that?
What do you want to do in the next 5 years? What is the end goal for you? Where do you want to go? Reverse engineer from there. Then what do you need to learn that you haven't learned in school, or what do you need to get experience in that you haven't gotten any experience in? And then go find the people that can help you grow into that person.
I think it's actually taking control and finding those people and not just waiting for it to come to you. And now the whole world job market has flipped on its side in the last decade, I would say, but
last
more so
2 months, the last 4 weeks actually.
People, it used to be when you would get out of school, you could get a job at, if you wanted to be whatever, you could go get that job at that place and build your way up, and you would stay with that company for long periods of time. But now it seems like as you're coming out of school, these students and people are coming out looking to get that top dollar right out of school. The expectation is to have that big work-live balance and to have right off the hop. Whereas I find our generation, we worked and worked and worked to get peanuts. Whereas now it's changed. So I think
I'm really happy for them that it's changed, though. I am. They can come out of the hop and ask for more money because that's what the job market is demanding now. But it's not always going to last. That's not going to be a forever situation.
It's already changing. It's already changing.
So then they're going to have to learn how to navigate that. We've had multiple economic
adjustments,
downturns in our lifetime. So you've had to adjust the way that you look for work, the way that you navigate your career, all of those things. You can ask for there are still some fields that you can still ask top dollar for because they're in a labor shortage. But eventually that will swing, and then what do you do? And then what do you win it for? Right? If you're only in it for the money, I guarantee you there is always going to be somewhere that pays you more. There's usually a reason why they pay you more.
But that's what they're doing, is they're job hopping now. That's their messaging that is being pushed out on social media is you should be looking for a job every day. You should be putting your name out there and interviewing. It doesn't matter. So it used to be if you were at a job for under a year and then you were at another one for a year and 2 months or whatever, you weren't a valued employee but now that's kind of changed because these guys are just jumping to get as much experience as possible. So we've got to relook and shake up the looking glass.
I think it's going to be more acceptable now with AI because of the fact that all of your project timelines are going to be a lot shorter. So in a year, they could probably have completed 6 projects and have examples of all of the things that they've learned. Whereas when we were,
isn't it?
Exactly. Where when we were
go to the library and get it in
exactly
because it's still like in our business, it's still one of the single most asked questions. Why are they moving around so much, or why have they moved around so much? If they even get presented at all, because sometimes we'll look at that ourselves before we even present them and say that they're looking for longevity. This doesn't scream that out, so we might not present it. It does give us another...
I'll just edit that out, Angela.
It was going to fall off the edge.
It does give us something else to think about or to talk to our clients about too. How often do you think job seekers should sit down, look at, and reassess their career goals?
I tell every candidate personally, every time you learn a new skill, have your resume open in the background on your computer, because every time you're learning something new and you've added a new skill set, you've done a course or whatever, get it onto your resume right away because it's fresh, you can speak to it, and then if and when it's time to go look for a new job, you have everything there. So I always tell them.
Where were you 10 years ago?
It's true. It's the business of you, right?
I think I talked to you.
This is the only time I've ever brushed up my resume. When a recruiter called me and be like, "Hey, do you want to look at something?" And I'm like,
But it's true, if you're in the business of you and wanting to take charge of your career, that's a great tip. Keep yourself engaged in your career growth, but also realigning your goals. Wow, I've done this and this and this over the last year. Maybe I am ready for a change.
No, but that's true though, because if you wait till the end of a fiscal year, you forget.
Reviews, especially if you're going to get bonused, and a lot of companies have the tell me what you did to help us this year. You might have done a lot, you just can't think of everything.
One little thing that I always try to say, particularly if you're in sales, you're an executive, you need to have numbers and metrics on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what your year-over-year growth was. You need to know what your retention rate was. All of that stuff. So I always tell executive people or anybody that or sales or whatever, because you can't go into a sales job. Yeah.
So no, that was the answers in terms of when you adjust and how you look at your business of you. What's the best way to stay motivated, you think, during and accountable? I guess if you set out goals for your job search, how do you measure yourself? How do you motivate yourself? How do you account?
Write down what your goals are. If you have it written down, and there's physical proof that you have something that you were trying to get towards. And then when you need a reminder, as in you've lost all hope and motivation, which happens sometimes, then you actually have a place that you can look back to and like, why am I doing this? Oh, it's because I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. All right.
Good. That takes care of segment 2.
Wow, you just launched through that.
You guys.